Let's get physical. It's Jordan here, back again with this month's update on all the physical releases coming to the PlayStation 5 and Xbox this October. Once again, it is a monster month for the monster season. This video was researched, written, and edited by my man Tim. It is all his work, nothing to do with me aside from my weird voice. So let's see what Tim's got for us. Dead End City is releasing on the 1st of October for PS5 and Switch in Europe, a bullet hell driving game where you're outgunned, outnumbered, and very often out of petrol. Dead End City mixes Mad Max's aesthetic with arcade sensibilities. It's all about weaving through waves of enemies, shooting your way down ruined highways, and trying not to crash before the soundtrack finishes its synth solo. A niche release, but one with enough grit and chaos to keep both shmup fans and those looking for a novel release entertained. Ghost of Yotei is releasing on the 2nd of October for PS5 in both North America and Europe. 329 years after Ghost of Tsushima, Sucker Punch returned with Ghost of Yotei, a standalone sequel that shifts the scenery, the mask, and much of the old world's burdens, but keeps the heart of the experience intact. The wandering warrior in feudal Japan returns, but this time the landscapes are harsher, snow and tundra, cold grasslands mixed with volcanic mountains, and Mount Yotei. And the mask you wear carries new legends. There are new weapons, including much in-demand ranged tools, new mechanics, refined combat, and 3 distinct cinematic modes: Kurokawa mode plus style filters inspired by Takashi Miike and Shinichiro Wanatabe. I think I nailed that first time. It's clearly being positioned as one of Sony's tentpole exclusives this year. There is a collector's edition, complete with Atsu mask, a sash, art cards, and more, for those who want their shelf to match their hype. This will be a big title for many, although this is Jordan interrupting here, as I learned when I very naively put it in my biggest games of October video. People were furious I dared put it in thanks to a developer controversy, which I had no idea about. Sorry, I don't go on Twitter or news sites very often these days. And probably also my executive producers, because Alexander Cato, The Nemo 6, Thorn Metal Luna, God of Resin, and Danielle O have chosen this as their pick of the month. Life is Strange Collection is releasing on the 2nd of October for PS5 in both North America and Europe, another trip down memory lane for Square Enix's teen drama anthology, bundling together the titles. Looks like most of this package is a download, unfortunately, so more of a cheap repackage rather than a comprehensive one, which is a shame for fans. This remaster tidies up the visuals, smooths out performance, and adds the usual quality of life bits, while still retaining the same time-bending angst and awkward romance that's beloved by the fans. Digimon Story Time Stranger is releasing on the 3rd of October for Xbox and PS5 worldwide. Bandai Namco's monster-raising RPG series returns with its first all-new entry in quite a while, this time sending tamers on a hop through time itself. Expect the usual mix of training, battling, and fusing digital critters, now framed by a story that drags the Digi-destined across eras to patch up history. With over 450 Digimon confirmed to collect and a heavier emphasis on party building strategy, it's aiming squarely at fans who've been waiting for a new game since Cyber Sleuth. It's a rare big budget outing for Digimon in 2025, and my executive producer Feig has chosen this as their pick of the month. And if you want it or any of the games in this video, please do consider using the purchase links in the description and pinned comment. That helps me out ever so much, and especially this video for Tim, which takes a lot of work. If you purchase from VGP, they have free worldwide shipping on orders over 75 Canadian dollars, which is just like 54 American bucks, and you also get put into a weekly draw to have a chance of winning a $10 discount coupon. If you use my link, that is, so do that, and I thank you ever so much. Crypt Custodian is releasing on the 3rd of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. An indie Metroidvania/Zelda-like where you play as a deceased cat forced to serve out an eternity as the underworld's janitor. Armed with a broom that doubles as a weapon, you'll scrub through dungeons, unlock shortcuts, and batter monsters while chipping away at your celestial community service. It is a tongue-in-cheek spin on the usual gloomy afterlife tale with a mix of charm and challenge that makes damnation look surprisingly inviting. The Grinch Christmas Adventure Merry and Mischievous Edition is releasing on the 3rd of October for Xbox, PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. Barely October, and the Grinch has already arrived to flog Christmas cheer, this time in a reissued package from 2023's rather middling platformer. Tim's been rather generous here. The Merry and Mischievous Edition adds some bonus costumes and extra content, but the core remains a short, child-friendly collectathon with a lot of green fur and not much of a bite. Unless you're that dog. What's his name? I don't know. Sonic Wings Reunion is releasing on the 7th of October for PS5 and Switch in Europe, already available in Japan. The revival of the long-running Sonic Wings shoot-'em-up series, already released digitally and also physically in Japan, not to the best reception critically, with the visuals taking the brunt of the negativity, but I think it's more about celebrating the series' cult legacy than reinventing it. But for old-school fans of shoot-'em-ups, this reunion is a rare chance to see the franchise look back on itself and go back to old-school shmup sensibilities. And personally, Jordan interjecting here, I enjoyed it. It is a good shmup. If you like the psycho shooters, then you'll enjoy this for sure. It is too pricey for what it is, but it's decent. Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP is releasing on the 8th of October for PS5 and Switch in Europe, previously available in North America via Limited Run Games and also in Japan. This is a remaster of Grasshopper Manufacturer's infamous 2012 cult oddity. Lollipop Chainsaw puts you into the pom-poms of Juliet Starling, a cheerleader carving her way through zombies with a talking decapitated boyfriend in tow. The original was divisive but praised for its campy style, soundtrack and sheer absurdity. RePOP tidies up the visuals somewhat, smooths out performance a bit, and swaps in new tracks where, licensing has expired, much to the chagrin of many, but that's just music these days. The re-release certainly hasn't rewritten history. This is still a gloriously dumb Suda51 fever dream, equal parts charming and janky. A title well worth trying if you've never played it before. Goodbye Sweet Carole is releasing on the 9th of October for PS5 and Switch in Europe. North American copies will be available later in the month on the 21st. A side-scrolling survival horror dressed up in a Disney-style hand-drawn animation. You'll sneak, solve puzzles, and hide from enemies rather than fight them, all while navigating a tale of missing children, sinister hares, and a cursed orphanage. By Sweet Carole lures you in with a storybook whimsy, but it's been gathering a lot of buzz as one of the more original horror indies in recent years. And my executive producer Viz has chosen this as their pick of the month. Battlefield 6 is releasing on the 10th of October for Xbox and PS5 in both North America and Europe. EA's flagship shooter returns, once again promising the sort of all-out warfare that usually boils down to being shot from 400 meters away by someone you never saw. After the lukewarm reception to Battlefield 2042, expectations were mixed. Fans are hoping for a return to form with tighter gunplay and fewer weather event gimmicks, while skeptics are already bracing for server crashes and balanced patches disguised as live service content. It'll sell millions regardless, though whether it earns forgiveness or just another round of memes remains to be seen. Little Nightmares 3 is releasing on the 10th of October for Xbox, PS4, PS5, Switch, and Switch 2 as a game key. Yay! The eerie platform horror series continues, this time under the watch of Supermassive Games rather than Tarsier Studios. Co-op is the big hook here, letting two players stumble through the unsettling dreamscapes together, though whether that dilutes the loneliness that made the first two games so effective remains to be seen. Cynically, I feel they're going after the streamer-influencer market here, but there could be some sincerity in trying to build a different and unique title in the popular franchise. Either way, expect more grotesque creatures, oversized furniture, and the kind of uncanny atmosphere that makes the title such a cult classic. And my executive producer Dead Bunny's YouTube has chosen this as his pick of the month. Snoopy and the Great Mystery Club is releasing on the 10th of October for Xbox, PS5, and Switch in both North America and Europe. Everyone's favorite beagle is back, this time solving mysteries rather than napping on a doghouse roof. Aimed squarely at younger players, it mixes light puzzle solving with gentle adventure. It's unlikely to stretch the brain power of anyone over the age of 10, but as a colourful diversion with familiar Peanuts charm, it does its job. Maybe. Barbie Horse Trails is releasing on the 10th of October for Xbox, PS5, PS4 and Switch in both North America and Europe. You can tell Christmas is coming with the amount of licensed kids titles there are, and there are many more to come this month. Barbie saddles up once again for an equestrian adventure of trial riding. Oh, that kind of trial. I thought this was a Legend of Heroes spin-off. Expect a safe, linear course, a sprinkling of customization, and the kind of gentle gameplay that will keep younger players entertained rather than anything approaching Red Dead Redemption in pink saddlebags. But who knows? I haven't played it. Luto is releasing on the 15th of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. A psychological horror that swaps monsters and shotguns for grief and claustrophobia. Luto traps players in the looping corridors and dreamlike spaces that blur reality with nightmare. Some positive reception and feedback from its digital release, where comparisons to PT are unavoidable. The terror comes less from cheap jump scares and more from a creeping dread that never quite leaves. It's moody, unsettling, and exactly the sort of thing that makes you question whether redecorating your house with endless doors was really such a good idea. Asterix and Obelix Mission Babylon is releasing on the 16th of October for PS5 and Switch in Europe. The indomitable Gauls are back again, this time heading east for a side-scrolling beat-em-up that continues the series' long tradition of bashing Romans across continents. It's colourful, silly, and is faithful to the comic style as ever, though the formula hasn't exactly evolved since its last outing. One for Asterix fans and forgettable for anyone else, maybe. Autopsy Simulator is releasing on the 16th of October for PS5 in Europe. As the name suggests, Autopsy Simulator is exactly what it says on the tin, a meticulous, slightly grisly examination of cadavers for those who always wanted a career in pathology without the paperwork. Expect a mix of autonomy lessons, puzzle-like dissections, and more than a few awkwardly precise clicks. It's certainly niche, very morbid, and probably best avoided unless you genuinely enjoy poking around other people's businesses, like literally. Absalom is releasing on the 17th of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. As side-scrolling beat-em-up, Absalom has players moving through multi-layered stages, facing waves of enemies while chaining together combos to rack up big scores. Each level mixes platforming challenges with brawling action and a colourful cast of characters and foes to keep encounters very varied. Players can experiment with different characters and abilities, encouraging multiple playthroughs and offering some replayability beyond the main campaign. While it follows the familiar genre conventions, it also has its own visual flair and pacing twists, making it a solid pick for anyone looking for an arcade-style action game on modern consoles. And my executive producers, Dane Wilkinson and Michael Del Polito, have chosen this as their pick of the month. And by the way, if you are new here and you love physical video games and you found this video useful so far, then hit that subscribe button. It will be the best thing you do today. I promise you that. Unless you pet a dog or you stroke a cat, then fine, it'll be the second or third thing you do. But, it's still a good thing to do. Subscribe. Another Crab's Treasure is releasing on the 17th of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. A Souls-like with a twist. Instead of a brooding knight, you play as Krill, a hermit crab, on a quest to reclaim his stolen shell. Set in a vibrant underwater world made of human detritus, the game combines punishing combat with a satirical take on plastic pollution. Critics have lauded its accessibility options, making it approachable for newcomers to the genre, while still also offering depth for veterans. The game has been compared to Sekiro for its precise combat and emphasis on timing, but with a lighter tone and a really unique setting. Kaku, Ancient Seal, is releasing on the 17th of October for Xbox and PlayStation 5 in both North America and Europe. An open-world action RPG set in a vibrant, elemental fantasy world. You control Kaku, a young boy tasked with restoring balance to a fractured realm, journeying across diverse biomes, ranging from snowy mountains to misty swamps, seeking to reclaim elemental powers lost after a cataclysmic event. The game features dynamic combat with customizable skill trees, plus puzzle solving in ancient ruins and exploring expansive environments. While the game has received praise for its engaging world and mechanics, some players have noted that certain elements feel overly familiar and a bit dull to fans of the genre. Elf on the Shelf, Christmas Heroes, is releasing on the 17th of October for PS4, PS5, and Switch in both North America and Europe. A festive adventure aimed squarely at younger players, this game has you guiding the titular elf through Christmas-themed levels, collecting presents and avoiding hazards. Cheap, not particularly interesting in any way, but will undoubtedly make its way underneath a few Christmas trees this year, I imagine. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is releasing on the 17th of October for Xbox and PS5 in both North America and Europe. Bethesda's 2006 legendary RPG classic makes its grand return to shop shelves, with the remastered edition having already been available digitally for quite some time now. This physical release has been much in demand. It is unknown at the minute though how much of it is actually on the disc. Reception has been very positive, with praise for the upgraded visuals and smoother performance, and luckily some of the quirks and eccentricities that define the original still remaining firmly intact. Oblivion was the series' breakout mainstream hit, and while Skyrim might have stolen the long-term limelight, many still consider this the more imaginative entry, its radiant AI producing as much comedy as drama, and its side quests outlasting the main story in fan memory. The release gives collectors and nostalgics alike another reason to revisit Cyrodiil, whether to storm Oblivion gates with shiny new textures, or to once again accidentally aggro the entire town guards for nicking an apple. It's a reminder of just how ambitious, messy, and utterly lovable the game was and still is, even if I personally think it's a crime they have removed the bloom. Lumo 2 releasing on the 17th of October for PS5 and Switch in Europe. The sequel to 2016's cult isometric puzzler returns with more block shoving, switch flicking, and slightly too precise jumping. However, it is also switching genres with a lot of other stuff going on as well. Lots of different game types that will make you nostalgic for the 80s and 90s, especially for kids in Europe. It leans hard into retro British microcomputer nostalgia, aiming for that mix of charm, challenge, and occasionally the urge to lob your controller at the telly. Painkiller is releasing on the 21st of October for Xbox and PlayStation 5 in both North America and Europe. The cult 2004 PC shooter, famous for its gothic metal album cover aesthetic, is back for another spin. Painkiller carved out its niche by being loud, fast, and uninterested in subtlety, a sort of Doom knockoff that seemingly ended up developing its own bizarre personality, and while researching this title, a legion of intense fans who will swear it's one of the best shooters of its era. Whether this revival holds up in 2025 or feels like a cringy, edgy relic remains to be seen, but if nothing else, expect plenty of guns, gore, and a complete absence of irony. Ninja Gaiden 4 is releasing on the 21st of October for Xbox and PlayStation 5 worldwide. Few franchises in gaming carry quite the same baggage as Ninja Gaiden. What began in the late 80s as a famously cruel NES side-scroller became, under Tomonobu Itagaki, one of the defining action series of the Xbox and Xbox 360 era. Those reboots were notorious for their blistering combat, exacting difficulty, and a certain edgy cool that carved them a permanent niche alongside Devil May Cry. The trouble was, unlike its peers, Ninja Gaiden never quite adapted to the changing tastes of a wider audience, fizzling out after a much derided Yaiba spin-off a decade ago. Now, with Ninja Gaiden 4, Ryu Hayabusa is finally unsheathing the Dragon Sword once again. The game promises a return to the franchise's old-school intensity, high-speed encounters, brutal enemies, and a difficulty curve resembling a cliff face. But it also faces a monumental balancing act, honoring a reputation built on punishing precision while proving the formula can work in a modern market less tolerant of controller snapping frustration. Either way, the return of Ninja Gaiden is no small event. It's gaming history dusting itself off, and I really hope this delivers for all those who have been waiting. And it is my man Tim's Pick of the Month. Jurassic World Evolution 3 is releasing on the 21st of October for Xbox and PS5 in both North America and Europe. Frontier Developments is back with Jurassic World Evolution 3, the latest in its park management / dinosaur wrangling series. The first game nailed the fantasy of building your own Jurassic Park, while the second tried to deepen the systems. This third entry is promising expanded ecosystems, new prehistoric species, and smarter AI. As with the films, the appeal isn't really in the smooth running of the park, but in watching your best laid plans collapse under the weight of one of the escaping raptors. If you want a business sim where your disaster is practically a feature, this is about as authentic as it gets. And for anyone who's ever thought Roller Coaster Tycoon could do with more teeth and screaming, then this is your chance. And my executive producer, Radio to Rancid, has chosen this as his Pick of the Month. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is releasing on the 21st of October for Xbox, PS4 and PS5 in both North America and Europe. After years of delays, studio changes, and a development saga that felt like it needed its own gothic tragedy, Bloodlines 2 is finally emerging. Is it really? The original 2004 cult classic was buggy, brilliant, and beloved in equal measure, remembered for its writing and atmosphere rather than its technical stability. This sequel promises modern RPG systems, layered with the same clan politics, moral compromises, and neon-lit urban decay that defined its predecessor. Whether it can live up to the impossible expectations of fans who've been waiting like 2 decades for it is another question entirely. Tormented Souls 2 is releasing on the 23rd of October for PS5 in both North America and Europe. This follow-up to 2021's retro-inspired survival horror, Tormented Souls 2 continues the tradition of claustrophobic corridors, puzzles, and tense camera angles. The first game was praised for evoking the tension and atmosphere of classic PS1 era horror, and the sequel aims to expand that formula with larger environments, more intricate traps, and a cast of new enemies. Fans of methodical, old-school survival horror may find a lot to like here, and my executive producer Louis K has chosen this as his pick of the month. Double Dragon Revive is releasing on the 23rd of October for Xbox, PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. Another attempt to drag Bimmy and Jimmy out of the arcade afterlife, Double Dragon Revive gives the long-running brawler a modern coat of paint while keeping the side-scrolling, face-punching fundamentals intact. The series has had more resurrections than EastEnders characters, but this one leans on a slick new 3D engine and updated combat tweaks to tempt both nostalgia merchants and new blood. Whether it lands closer to the charm of the arcade classics or the long list of more forgettable titles is yet to be seen, but if you're a fan, I'm sure it'll be worth picking up. Diluvian Winds is releasing on the 23rd of October for PS5 and Switch in Europe. This indie oddity casts you as a lighthouse keeper trying to shepherd a community of animal survivors after the seas rise and civilization drowns. So it's like a downer Animal Crossing. Blending management, survival, and side-scrolling building, it's a quieter, reflective sort of apocalypse where the real challenge isn't fighting zombies but keeping everyone fed, sheltered, and vaguely happy. It won't be for many, I feel, but if you fancy a slower-paced mediation on climate change, community, and raccoons who refuse to pull their weight, it might be a cup of tea. Once Upon a Katamari is releasing on the 24th of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. The king of all Cosmos returns, only this time, your Katamari isn't just hoovering up living rooms and city blocks, he's rolling through history itself. So presumably, plenty of dinosaurs, samurai, and steam trains to stick as readily as pigeons and traffic cones. While Keita Takahashi has long since wandered off to stranger pastures, Bandai Namco's in-house team are keeping the tradition alive, balancing absurdity with an affectionate nod to the past. It's also the first new Katamari game in well over a decade, after years of ports and remasters. Whether or not it hits the same eccentric heights of the original, it's hard to resist the joy of watching a tiny ball swell into a disaster that can flatten entire planets in a single roll. And my executive producers Jeddah Crow and Kaba Clavicol have chosen this as their pick of the month. Tomb Raider 4-6 Remastered is releasing on the 24th of October for PS4, PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. Following on from February's well-received remasters of the first trilogy, Aspyr are back with the final run of Core Design's Lara Croft adventures. This time it's Last Revelation, Chronicles and The Angel of Darkness, dusted off and given a polish, covering Lara's late 90s romp through her early 2000s stumble into the PS2 era. It's a curious trio, one beloved, one filler, and one infamously appalling, but bundled together, you can see the actual decline of the series, and I am gonna be there for it, because my executive producer Cartoon Soren and myself have chosen this as our pick of the month. Hot Wheels Let's Race Ultimate Speed is releasing on the 24th of October for Xbox, PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. Another spin of the miniature diecast wheel, Ultimate Speed promises a lot, but it's clearly pitched at kids, or nostalgically inclined adults still hoarding tiny cars in the attic. And while it won't be traipsing Mario Kart anytime soon, it is another colourful toy box racer that'll keep children entertained until the next iteration. Golden Tee Arcade Classics is releasing on the 24th of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. The venerable pub golf series takes a swing at living rooms, swapping sticky and worn trackballs for a controller. Golden Tee Arcade Classics bundles together the franchise's early installments, offering a hit of 90s nostalgia. If anything, this collection is a fairly deep dive into the series' arcade evolution. A solid haul for anyone who once wasted lots of coins in the chase for that perfect swing. Dora! Rainforest Rescue is releasing on the 24th of October for Xbox, PS4, PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. Not too much to say really, it's unlikely to thrill anyone past the age of 10, but for the intended audience it's a colourful, safe and very structured trip through the rainforest. Parents can breathe easy, there's no real danger, just lots of talking backpacks and encouraging phrases. Chicken Run Extraction is releasing on the 24th of October for every console ever made in both North America and Europe. Based on the cult favourite stop-motion film, this cooperative adventure has players taking on the role of crafty chickens attempting one last great escape. Puzzle solving, stealth sections, and timing challenges, all with the charm and humour of the original movie intact, apparently. And maybe the sequel movie. When's that coming out? Is it out already? I don't know. Bendy Lone Wolf is releasing on the 24th of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. The ink-drenched Joey Drew Studios returns in Lone Wolf, leaning further into the series' mix of cartoonish charm and creepy corners. The usual exploration, puzzle solving and occasional jump scares wrapped in the same vintage animation aesthetic as the earlier games. It won't redefine survival horror, but for fans of the series, it is a welcome return, I am sure. Nordic Ashes, the complete saga, is releasing on the 24th of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. This edition bundles the original survivors of Ragnarok alongside its DLC expansions, Remnants of Corruption and Dark Knight skins. Battle through 9 maps inspired by Norse mythology, unlocking upgrades and facing bosses. The game features 10 characters, each with exclusive skills and weapons, and a skill tree in the form of character constellations to improve the stats of each survivor. Seems to be fairly popular and well received, so if you're after a new roguelike, it could be worth a look. Fast and Furious Arcade Edition, releasing on the 24th of October for Xbox, PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. So published by Game Mill, but developed by Raw Thrills, the same studio behind the Cruising arcade series, so probably a title that would have been forgettable to almost everyone, but it may find some interest here. Game Mill certainly have their distinctive reputation for budget releases. It's a curious pairing, but an arcade racer that's fast, flashy, and absurd in equal measure. I'm kind of looking forward to it personally. Simon the Sorcerer Origins is releasing on the 28th of October for PS5 and Switch in Europe, and I think it was releasing in North America, but that may have been cancelled. After years of false starts, Simon the Sorcerer is finally getting a prequel, though not from the original British team, but an Italian studio taking the reins. That inevitably raises the question, can anyone but the creators truly capture Simon's very specific brand of sarcastic, slightly obnoxious British humour? Who knows? The results look more polished and story-driven, leaning into modern adventure design while trying to preserve the spirit of the original cult 90s series. It could be a welcome revival, or it could feel like watching someone else do peep show impressions for 3 hours, amusing in patches but not quite the real thing. However, Chris Barry is doing the voice again. He's come back after 20 years, and I am very looking forward to his performance, because he's a smeghead, and I love him. Pacific Drive is releasing on the 28th of October for PS5 in Europe, already available in North America. One of this year's more unusual indie darlings, Pacific Drive is a road-like survival game where your only companion is a battered station wagon that you constantly patch up, upgrade, and pray it doesn't fall apart. Set in a warped Pacific Northwest exclusion zone, it mixes eerie exploration, resource management, and the kind of quiet dread that comes from watching your fuel gauge plummet in the middle of nowhere. Reception digitally has been warmly positive, praise for atmosphere and originality, though a few found the repetition a bit of a grind. Still, it's not every day you get a survival game that makes you care more about your car's tire pressure than your own health bar. Looks interesting. The 3 Hyper Dimension Neptunia Rebirth games are releasing on the 28th of October for PS5 in North America and Europe, although they have to wait until next month. Neptunia, the series where home consoles are anthropomorphized, thanks Tim, into anime goddesses. The fourth wall is a constant state of collapse, and the fan service is about as subtle as a brick through a plate glass window. These 3 Rebirth titles are essentially remakes of the original trilogy, already remade once for Vita, then ported to PC, and now dragged onto the PS4 and on Nintendo Switch as well, but that's a different kind of collection. Fans will argue this is peak Neptunia, the point where the games were still mechanically solid before the spin-off spiraled into increasingly baffling experiments. Outsiders, meanwhile, may look on in horror as 100 hours of self-referential gags and anime tropes unfold before them like a convention panel that never ends. Still, if you're already in the cult, you know exactly what you're signing up for, and will probably love it for precisely those reasons. Everyone else, maybe spend your money elsewhere. They are terrible JRPGs. Sorry, wait, what? The Outer Worlds 2 is releasing on the 29th of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. Obsidian returns to Halcyon's satirical spacefaring with The Outer Worlds 2, expanding the formula with a brand new star system, fresh corporations to mock, and an entirely new cast of companions. Once again, expect branching dialogue, faction politics, and the choice-driven RPG structure Obsidian is known for, but this time with larger maps, more varied biomes, and a combat system reportedly built to feel weightier than the first game's floaty gunplay. The original earned praise for its witty writing and strong character interactions, though it was often criticized for its short length and limited environments. This sequel aims to address those gaps, promising more expansive exploration without abandoning the studio's trademark humor and moral grey areas. And if there is one thing Obsidian can be relied on for, it is offering you a decision that makes you feel guilty no matter which one you pick. And my executive producers Jennifer M. and Kevin W. have chosen this as their pick of the month. Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D Remake is releasing on the 30th of October for Xbox, PS5, Switch, and Switch 2 as a game key. Square Enix continues its HD 2D revival with Dragon Quest 1 and 2, giving the series' earliest entries some lavish pixel meets modern lighting treatment as Octopath Traveler and Live Alive, whatever it's called, and following up from last year's Dragon Quest 3. These 2 games are where the JRPG blueprint was first sketched: turn-based battles, towns full of chatty NPCs, and an evil lord to vanquish with a trusty sword. These remakes aim to streamline some of the rougher pacing of the Famicom originals while keeping the charm intact, presenting them together as a natural lead-in to last year's Dragon Quest III, as they are in narrative order. For veterans, it is a chance to revisit gaming's bedrock without the clunky menus and grinding of 1980s design. For newcomers, it's like opening a history book where the pages sparkle. Even if the stories are simple by modern standards, there's something fittingly timeless about saving the world one slime at a time. And my executive producers, Vey, Adamantium, Punky Dooster, and Cookie Kid have chosen this as their pick of the month. Harvest Moon Home Sweet Home is releasing on the 30th of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. Another year, another Harvest Moon. Though this one makes a pitch for being a back-to-basics entry, leaning heavily on nostalgia for the SNES and PS1 era of the series. The art style is softer and more old-fashioned, the farming stripped back to simpler routines, and the emphasis is on quiet domestic life rather than sprawling gimmicks. Of course, it still carries the usual caveat: this is not the original Harvest Moon series. This is a fake Harvest Moon. How dare they? Well, they own the name. They just don't own the actual games. Monument Valley, the trilogy, is releasing on the 30th of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. The isometric puzzlers of elegant, impossible architecture combined in a single collection, bundling the original Monument Valley with its 2 follow-ups. Guiding silent princesses through optical illusions, shifting landscapes, and brain-teasing geometry, all set to the series' trademark serene soundtrack. The physical release is less about adding new mechanics and more about pressing the 3 games as complete as possible. For newcomers, it's a neat introduction to one of mobile gaming's most artful series. For returning players, it's a chance to revisit the calm, hypnotic design without the finger swiping of a touchscreen. RoboCop Rogue City Collection is releasing on the 30th of October for Xbox and PS5 in North America and Europe. This bundle packages RoboCop Rogue City and its standalone expansion, Unfinished Business, into one neat physical edition. Apparently, according to the publisher, all the content is on the disc, no download required. Gunplay, upgrades, and side missions remain the focus, now conveniently bundled for completionists and physical preservationists who like their justice served with a collectible metal case in hand. It's RoboCop as you know him, grim, metal, and very literal about the law. Perfect for fans who like the bullets and monotone one-liners packaged together without the fuss of downloading patches or DLC separately. Tales of Xillia Remastered is releasing on the 31st of October for Xbox, PS5, and Switch worldwide. The 2011 JRPG finally breaks free from its PS3 exclusivity with this full remaster, complete with upgraded visuals and smoother performance. Xillia stood out in its day for offering two protagonists with intersecting perspectives, a rarity in the Tales series, alongside the usual action-heavy combat and melodrama about spirits, technology, and the end of the world. It is a chance for longtime fans to revisit a well-regarded entry, and for newcomers to discover a Tales game often overshadowed by Symphonia and Vesperia. And with Bandai Namco cracking open the vault, perhaps Xillia 2 might finally be dragged out for another go as well. And my executive producers, Ghost Bune and Sora Cat, have chosen this as their pick of the month. Unholy is releasing on the 31st of October for PS5 in both North America and Europe. A first-person horror stealth adventure, apparently, set between a Soviet-era town and a parallel world. Unholy blends stealth puzzle solving and psychological storytelling, where you navigate both worlds while grappling with themes of grief and loss. The PC release in 2023 got a very mixed reception, praised for its atmosphere, scolded for clunky mechanics, and just being very, very mid. So not sure whether this console version redeems it or it's just a Halloween cash-in. Stasis Bone Totem is releasing on the 31st of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. An isometric sci-fi horror adventure, Stasis Bone Totem continues the lineage of the Stasis series with a fresh story set deep beneath the ocean. I've seen it described as The Thing meets Bioshock, but delivered through atmospheric point-and-click puzzling rather than frantic gunplay. The PC release in 2023 was well received, praised for its storytelling and oppressive mood, though some found its puzzles a touch obtuse. Another Halloween horror release. And it's not going to be the last. Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic is releasing on the 31st of October for PS5 in both North America and Europe. The animatronic circus rolls on with The Secret of the Mimic, the latest entry in the FNAF series. This one leans on the series' ever-expanding lore, tying into characters introduced in the novels and weaving more sinister backstories around its titular shape-shifting threat. Reception will likely split the room as usual. Die-hard fans will dig into every audio log and shadowy clue for hidden meaning, while skeptics may wonder how the series keeps on multiplying. Either way, another Halloween with Freddy and the Co. feels practically inevitable at this point. Paw Patrol Rescue Wheels Championship is releasing on the 31st of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. It's bright, it's bouncy, and it's unlikely to trouble Mario Kart anytime soon, but it doesn't need to. This one's squarely aimed at keeping younger fans entertained. The Sinking Forest is releasing on the 31st of October for PS5 in Europe, another narrative-driven horror adventure. The Sinking Forest this time is set in a Japanese woodland where nightmare and reality blur. Already out on PC, where it's quietly gathered a very modest handful of Steam reviews, this is very much a niche release, an indie curiosity for players who enjoy their horror slow, strange, and very obscure. Turok Trilogy Bundle is releasing on the 31st of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. The dino hunting shooter that once lived on the Nintendo 64 is now arriving in a nice physical package, bundling together Dinosaur Hunter, Seeds of Evil, and Shadow of Oblivion, all together in one nice package. Previously released individually by LRG, this is the first time all three remasters appear together in one collection, complete with widescreen support, smoother controls, and the general cleanup Night Dive is known for. It's a practical, nostalgia-soaked package, perfect for preservationists, completionists, and anyone who fondly remembers the foggy jungles and absurdly over-the-top arsenal. And my executive producer, Nerdy Sean, has chosen this as his pick of the month. Nice Day for Fishing is releasing on the 31st of October for PS5 and Switch in both North America and Europe. An indie fishing adventure mixing exploration, light puzzles, and quirky story beats as you wander around lakes and rivers in search of the big catch. Its low-pressure gameplay and whimsical tone make it approachable. A niche indie title is a sort of release for those who enjoy a slower pace, and my executive producer Azrith has chosen this as his pick of the month. Kemco RPG Selection Volume 1 is releasing on the 31st of October for PS5 and Switch in Europe. Finally, this is the last stop. It's been in Asia, it's been in Japan, it's been in North America, and now it is Europe. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is releasing on the 31st of October for PS5 and Switch in Europe, although the Switch is a code in a box nonsense. The classic quiz show gets another digital outing, this time under the slightly overdramatic Final Answer Edition banner. The usual general knowledge questions, lifelines, and that distinctive tension-building music is to be found here once again. It's hardly essential, but fans of the long-running franchise will find enough here to keep their brains engaged without leaving the sofa. It screams Christmas cash-in, although it doesn't really need to be. Eric's Home is releasing on the 31st of October for PS5 in Europe, a narrative-driven isometric stealth adventure developed by River End Games, set in the fictional city of Eric's Home. Inspired by early 20th century Scandinavian architecture. Critical reception has generally been pretty good for its atmospheric storytelling and detailed world building alongside some impressive graphics. However, some have noted that the gameplay leans towards linearity, with puzzles requiring specific solutions rather than offering creative freedom. Still, it offers a unique blend of stealth mechanics and narrative depth, appealing to fans of story-rich games and those who are interested in meticulously crafted game worlds. Gloomy Eyes is releasing on the 31st of October for PS5 in Europe, a darkly whimsical indie. Gloomy Eyes blends stop-motion visuals with a storybook-inspired tale of zombies' love and loneliness. Originally a VR experience, this edition adapts the cinematic style for a more traditional console playthrough, letting players explore its eerie, handcrafted world without the need for a headset. It's a niche title with a small but devoted following, perfect for those who appreciate atmospheric storytelling, unusual art styles, and a dash of melancholy. Truck Driver: The Dutch Connection is releasing on the 31st of October for Xbox and PS5 in Europe. Set in a reimagined Netherlands in 2027, you discover a new era of trucking where AI dispatchers work alongside human drivers and the industry is thriving. That is literally the description of the game. So yeah, it's set in a distant radical future of 2027. Wow, how far-sighted. The long-haul driving simulator returns with this Netherlands-focused expansion, putting players behind the wheel of European rigs as they navigate canals, windmills, and avoiding drug charges. Expect realistic driving physics, time-sensitive deliveries, and the occasional Dutch speed camera to keep things tense. Burnhouse Lane is releasing on the 31st of October for PS5 in North America. Developed by Harvester Games, the studio behind the cult hits The Cat Lady and Downfall, Burnhouse Lane is another side-scrolling survival horror with a heavy narrative. It follows a terminally ill nurse drawn into a nightmare where the living and the dead mingle in unpleasant ways. Already available on PC, it's praised for its atmosphere and storytelling, although it's potentially an acquired taste. Bleak, slow-burning, dour, perfect for a slower, more depressive afternoon, evening, Halloween thing. A quick mention to some of the games that have been delayed until this month. Here they are: Remorse List, Project Nightmares, Case 36, Henrietta Kedwood, Dead Reset, Kemco RPG Selection Volume 2, Hotel Barcelona, and Puppet House. Alright, limited run games. Yes, the pre-orders that are ending sometime this month. Dungeons & Dragons Neverwinter Nights 2 Enhanced Edition pre-orders end for this. Well, they've ended already. I'm sorry, these videos take a long time to make. Neverwinter Nights 2 has been hanging around on the PC since like 2006, and now Aspyr are giving the game the same treatment they gave the first game with this Enhanced Edition. It bundles the base game plus all the expansions, polishing up the visuals, user interface, and quality of life features to something closer to modern expectations. It's a big one for classic role-playing nostalgics, sprawling D&D storytelling, endless character builds, and a proper throwback to when Obsidian were the scrappy heirs of BioWare's isometric crown. For newcomers, it might feel a bit clunky, but for veterans, it's a chance to pretend it's still 2006. I wish it was. Nickelodeon Splat Pack. Pre-orders end on the 19th of October for PS5 and Switch. A tiny, very specific bundle of 90s games here. Real Monsters, Nickelodeon Guts, and Rocco's Modern Life Spunky's Danger Days. I've already made a joke about that and I'm not going to do it again. These are licensed relics rather than fondly remembered classics, and precisely the sort of thing limited run games love to press into plastic these days. It's a deliberate bit of nostalgia flogging, cynical, but good for preservationists and completionists, maybe. Breakout Beyond. Pre-orders end on the 19th of October for PS5. Atari mining its back catalogue once again, this time with a reimagining of the brick-busting classic Breakout. Breakout Beyond adds flashy visuals, new power-ups, and a handful of modern twists, but let's be honest, it's still just hitting coloured blocks with a ball. Adventure of Samsara. Pre-orders end on the 26th of October for PS5, a side-scrolling action platformer with a vaguely mystical journey through rebirth premise, though in practice it looks like just a standard indie hack and slash, but why not? Limited runs handling the physical, which means plenty of FOMO for a game that'll probably slip quietly under most people's radars, one for genre diehards or the curious few chasing obscurities. Star Ocean. First Departure R. Pre-orders end on the 26th of October for PS5 and Switch. The 2019 HD update of the PSP remake returns once again, this time as a limited run physical. Fans are pleased to finally see the very first Star Ocean properly preserved, though you can't help but wish it had followed Star Ocean the Second Story R into a full retail release instead. I'm guessing Second Story never sold that well. Still, it's a welcome chance to own the origins of the series in something more tangible than a download. For those unfamiliar, this entry follows young swordsman Roddick and his companions as they stumble into interstellar conflict, blending classic SNES-era RPG adventuring with the series' signature sci-fi trappings, with quality-of-life tweaks, voice acting options, and updated art. First Departure R remains the most accessible way to see where the franchise began, and my executive producers, Ishin and Robotech, have chosen this as their pick of the month. Ruffy and the Riverside. Pre-orders end on the 26th of October for PS5 and Switch, a charming hand-drawn platformer that leans on exploration, light puzzle solving. Ruffy and the Riverside puts players into the shoes of its titular hero, navigating whimsical waterways and forested landscapes. Not a lot of eyes on this, but with LRG it remains a niche experience with a chance for modest visibility outside of indie circles. Alright, the imports. If you want to import any of these, then please do use the Play Asia links. You can get 5% off if you use my code Jordan2025. Panty Party Perfect is releasing on the 19th of October on PS5 in Japan. A third-person action shooter that combines fast-paced combat with a heavy dose of perkiness. Panty Party Perfect lets players control a pair of sentient underwear battling other animated undergarments in various urban arenas. Known for its over-the-top humor and vibrant visuals, this release marks the game's debut on PS5, offering enhanced graphics and performance. While it may not be for everyone due to the unconventional premise, it has garnered a cult following for its unique gameplay and unapologetic interests, and my executive producers, Josh Foot, D's Nuts, and Lolo Jojo, have chosen this as their pick of the month. Hiragami is releasing on the 23rd of October for PS5 in Japan. Hiragami is a 3D action platformer developed by Bandai Namco Studios Singapore. Set in a world inspired by the Japanese art of origami, players control Hiro, a sentient origami figure wielding a folding fan. It combines platforming with puzzle-solving elements, allowing Hiro to transform into various animal forms, such as a frog, armadillo, and a monkey, to navigate the environment and combat enemies. Having been released digitally to complete indifference, it will be interesting to see if it fares any better physically. Full Metal Schoolgirl is releasing on the 23rd of October for PS5. There is a Switch 2 version, but it is a game key. This is releasing in Japan and Asia. Full Metal Schoolgirl is an over-the-top action shooter developed by Yuke's. Set in a dystopian 2089 Japan, the game follows two fully mechanized schoolgirls as they storm the 100-story headquarters of Maternal Jobs, a corrupt megacorporation that exploits its workforce known as the Working Dead. think this may end up being an import exclusive, so if you're on the fence, that might help you decide. Trouble Witch's Final, Episode 1, Daughters of Amalgam, is releasing on the 23rd of October for PS5 in Japan. A latecomer to the PS5, this side-scrolling bullet hell shooter is from Studio Sieste, I don't know. It is a very competent shooter where 12 playable witches battle through chaotic stages filled with enemy swarms and screen-filling bullet patterns. Originally released on PS4 and Switch in 2023, well, the PS5 release is Japan exclusive. Fans can look forward to a Western release on PS4 and Switch later this year if you fancy waiting for that. Earthion is releasing on the 30th of October for PS5 and Switch in Japan. The latest retro-inspired shmup from Ancient, Earthion blends chunky pixel visuals with 6 playable ships, 5 difficulty levels, and a soundtrack that wouldn't feel out of place on a PC engine. I think it's the Genesis, but it's a fast-paced, flashy, arcade-style shmup that fans of the 16-bit era will absolutely love. Limited Run did this one in North America already, and there will be a European physical release at retail at some point in the near future too. And my executive producer Dave Hallworth has chosen this as his pick of the month. Here are some other releases in Japan that the West already has. And here are some Japanese releases that do not have English. Thank you for watching all the way through. If you watched all the way through, please leave me a dinosaur emoji in honor of Jurassic World Evolution 3. Why that one? Well, I'm just looking at the word right now on my script. Special thanks as always to my executive producers. Here they are right now. And if you want to purchase any of the video games in this video, then please do so via the links below in the description and pinned comment, because that helps support me, this video series specifically, so I can actually pay Tim money to make them, because that would be nice, right? And yeah, thank you so much. Have a fantastic day. Take care.